This whole thing started about 2 months ago. That's when the deep web was starting to get a lot of attention on the internet, especially amongst young people. My little brother was in high school, and, of course, being the age he was, he decided to hop on the bandwagon, I guess. I don't live with my family or my brother anymore, so he told me all of this through Facebook, but apparently him and his friends would actually go onto the deep web. I'm not exactly sure how that stuff works, but I was worried about him nonetheless. My brother was always quite the gamer. We used to play video games a lot together when we were growing up, but I sort of grew out of it, and he didn't. It was pretty common for him to try to play all these obscure, weird horror games or anything else he could find on the internet that was weird or entertaining to him. That stuff normally didn't bother me, but my brother was telling me about getting this game called Sad Satan off of the deep web. I, of course, advised against it because who knows who could be on the deep web. I've heard all these stories online and none of it sounded good. My brother decided to play it anyway. After he first tried the game out, he messaged me and told me how it went. He described the game as confusing, basically. He said that the game had a lot of disturbing imagery and sounds. Most of it was distorted. To him, this game was unnerving, but nothing freaky. He figured that it was just someone trying to bank off of the popularity of the deep web with their game. A couple of days later, I got another message from my brother about the game. He told me that there really overall wasn't anything special about it. Like I said, he just thought it was some person trying to bank off the popularity of the deep web. The only thing that really bugged him about it was that it gave him some kind of motion sickness or something because he was puking for about an hour after he finished the game. It was at this point that I started to get worried about him. My mom called me up a few days later with the usual updates. This time, she told me that my brother was seriously ill, though. At first, she figured that maybe he just ate something bad and had food poisoning or something like that. The thing is, it lasted for a few days, and eventually he started to puke this weird black substance. What's even weirder is that he started to sleepwalk. He'd never done that before. There were other times where he would have night terrors. My mom told me that he'd wake up screaming in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat. I tried to call my brother about it, but he never picks up his phone, so I left him a message on Facebook. It took him a little while, but he eventually got back to me. We went back and forth about it for a while. He told me that his night terrors were mostly the images that he saw in the game. The weird thing about that is that my brother isn't easily spooked by gore or other things on the internet of that sort. In fact, he told me that the images weren't the thing that bugged him the most about the game. He told me that once he got to the end, and got through all those images and whatnot, that there was this weird flashing sort of code text that was on the screen. It lasted for a few seconds, he told me, and then it disappeared. At this point, I wanted to do some research for myself. I could have downloaded the game, but trust me, I'm not the type to mess around with those things. The only information I could dig up really didn't help anything. I noticed that people who played it all seemed to have different versions of it. And like I said, Sad Satan is something supposedly off the deep web, so I suppose there really is no way to know which version you're playing. And with that being said, I have no idea which game or whatever it was that my brother played. It was finally time for my brother to go back to school. The thing is, he was so sick that he couldn't. Our mom did bring him to the doctor. They couldn't tell what was wrong with him, so they decided to run some tests. Until then, there was nothing they could do. About a week later, I got another message from my brother on Facebook. The thing is, I work a lot, so I got the message kind of late. He basically told me about how tired he was, how fed up he was. He told me that he could barely get any sleep anymore. He told me about how he would lie awake, nauseous, afraid of throwing up that black stuff again. He claimed that he felt withered away, that he felt like giving up. What he said next is something that I didn't quite understand, and I'm still trying to process right now. He mentioned also feeling scared about the consequences of what he did. He mentioned something about the game and that because he had it and what was on it, that he'd probably get in a lot of trouble, maybe even go to jail. He said that the possibility of those consequences, plus the physical state he was in, was just too much to bear. The end of his lengthy message was a goodbye to me, basically. This, of course, freaked the shit out of me, but I figured, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, my brother was only 15, so I figured maybe he was just overreacting about something, or maybe he was just delusional because of his illness or something. It was sort of late at night at that point, but because of the disturbing message, I decided to give my mom a call. Right at that moment, right before I pressed my mom's name to dial her number, my phone started to ring. It was her. I had never seen my mom in such a horrible state. She was sobbing to me, crying, telling me that my brother was dead. I really don't want to go into too much details, but she found him and a tub of bleach on the bathroom floor. The most disturbing thing about that is that the floor was covered in that weird black substance that my brother kept throwing up. It took me a lot of thinking and a good amount of time to be able to come out and talk about this. If you know anyone who is following in the footsteps of my brother or doing anything like that on the deep web or downloading these types of things, please advise them against it. I understand that humans can be curious. Sometimes they can be horrible. I understand that we long for these sorts of things. We want to know about these deep, dark secrets that no one ever talks about. I think that's why everyone loves horror and gore so much. I think that's why people go onto the deep web and look for it, despite how dangerous it could be to them. But ask yourself this question. Is knowing the truth that worth it? Please, just don't download Sad Satan, and don't play it.